Okay, so basically, like, I was in the alleyway, like on the way to get some food, and I was like, I hit rec. I was like, oh, I got something to say. So I was like, doot, and then I was like, started saying it or whatever, and then like after the 5 minutes are up or whatever, that I was like, yeah, that's about right. And then I went, dude, and then I started recording. I just spent like a bunch of time talking about something that I thought was really good, and they didn't even record it. And that's like a perfect example of what I think is mind control. So they're basically like, they're like, what do we do if we give him his processing, if we turn his processing power up, right? But we do it in just a way that, like, we basically like pause his ability to use his body momentarily, because like literally, like, my processing power was right up, but I recognized that I was like physically, I felt like a fucking puppet, and I was like, okay, so right now I'm a fucking puppet. And then I was like, doot, right? And then I continued, and then I was like, my processing power was up, and I was like fully like able to communicate, right? And then, I hit pause or whatever, and then I was like, oh wow, so they didn't want me to remember what I had said, right? It'll come back. Like, it always comes back. Like, I'll be thinking somewhere, like I'll just be independently thinking, and I'll have these thoughts that come back to me, but then it won't be the right time or place to basically be expressing them. You know what I mean? So like sometimes like somebody will be talking to me about something, and I'll be like, well, this is totally irrelevant, right? And then like while it's being totally irrelevant, I'm having the thoughts come back to me. I'm like, this is really good, right? And then I'm like, wait a second. And I was like, it's not the time to make a voice memo because I'm technically listening to someone, right? And I'm like, okay, but you can understand like how that's not fair, right? One, because I have someone speaking to me who I should be listening to, right? And then I'm making leaps and bounds that I'm not necessarily able to record. And maybe my theory is maybe I'm not allowed to record it because it's being fine-tuned essentially. So like when it's not the right time or place to basically like release the fully matured thought, they're just basically trying to mature it. They're just trying to like mature the thought and like the expression to the point where it's ready to release. And then when it's ready to release, it's like on point. You know what I mean? It's fucking on point. But like it's not on my schedule. Again, it's not on my schedule because literally like I'm like, they're waiting, like it kind of feels like something's waiting too long, because I'm like, oh my god, it's like, at what cost? I'm like, it's at my cost. And then it's also, so like it's at my cost because like I can't like hit record when I need to, and then it's also at other people's cost because like if I'm having a conversation with someone, I'm like downloading information that's not necessarily, to my knowledge, like super related and relevant to what they're saying. And then if I can tie it back, if I can like use my brain to like try and help them, I'm just taking what they said and then I'm getting metaphorical about it. And metaphorical like is not necessarily super relevant, but it is kind of like metaphorical is kind of like this, you know what I mean? Like if you have a thought or whatever, like metaphorical is like trying to just like, I'm just trying to massage you basically. And then like if I get any kind of indication that you're like zoning out for a second and thinking about something, or like like you're like having a thought, I'll stop and I'll be like, okay, you know what I mean? I'll basically like massage you with like fucking like metaphorical stuff, like, and then like as soon as you're like, I'll go like, okay, and then take my hand and then like okay, like, but like it's not as, but like because I'm not paying attention fully, right? I'm like okay, someone's like telling me a story right now, right? I'm probably just gonna mess up my interpretation of their fucking story or experience, right? Because they're telling me an experience, but like to me it's just a story. It's totally real to them, and at the same time, like I can't empathize 100%. So like I might as well be selfish here and just like try to just like enjoy what they're saying no matter what, And if I'm enjoying what they're saying no matter what, I'm basically like on purpose cherry picking things from what they're saying so that like it's relevant to me in my life. And then also I'm being courteous. I'm going to try to be courteous and like, you know, if I cherry pick what I'm thinking about their story, right, it's because like I'm also trying to help them out too, because I'm like okay, you know what, like if you want to continue talking to me, telling me your story or whatever, like I'm going to cherry pick the things in my mind that I find interesting about your story and just like send them back at you. You know what I mean? Because like I do most of the stuff I do completely alone. Like I will fucking talk to myself like 100%. So like if you're talking to me or whatever, like you're basically looking for outside influences. You know what I mean? That's all it is. You know what I mean? You're looking for outside influences. You're looking for help if you're projecting your stuff, right, to someone you come into contact with, right? So I'm like okay, like if you're like if you want, I'll give my 2 cents about it, but like, you know, don't expect me to be like, oh, like poor you, or like oh, that's really funny. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's like, yeah, if I tell you a fucking joke, like I'm literally like laughing to myself. Like I'm not telling you the joke. Like I'll be like, do you think that's funny? Like, cause I'm curious, right? I'm more just investigating. Like I'm more just comparing. I'm like okay, like I'm gonna tell you this joke. I thought it was fucking hilarious, but like, you know, I just want to see how fucked up I am. I want to understand how fucked up I am, like how off the mark I am, like with everything. So if I tell you this joke and you're not laughing or whatever, like I'm like okay, you know what I mean? I'm like, and then if you are laughing, I realize I'm like okay, they're finding it funny for a completely different reason that's non-relevant to anything to do with my life, because it's a synchronicity in theirs, right? It's all time. So like I'm like fuck it.